A word of warning, this podcast explores graphic and disturbing stories and includes some strong language. It therefore may not be suitable for our young listeners or other folks who may find it disturbing. Hello and welcome to True Crime Daily, the podcast covering high-profile and under-the-radar cases from across the country every week. I'm your host, Anna Garcia, and our cases this week. The elderly cat ladies of Alabama have been convicted and sentenced to jail. Their crimes, technically trespassing and disorderly conduct, but what they were really doing was feeding stray cats. This real-life Thelma and Louise are 85 and 61 years old. The police body cam video of their arrests is not to be missed, and we will be playing it for you. But first, a much more serious case. A woman is charged with murdering her former stepfather after she discovered more than 100 nude photos of herself on the man's computer. Prosecutors allege that after finding the lewd images, the woman hatched a plan to drug her former stepfather before allegedly strangling him. The woman maintains that she never planned to kill him and that his own intoxication led to his death. We are recording this on Wednesday, December 21st of 2022. Our guest today is Jared Bradley, the president of MVAC Systems, a wet vacuum-based forensic DNA collection system. Jared has experience training law enforcement professionals in new technologies of DNA collection and analysis. He's also the host of All Things Crime podcast. Jared, I'm so excited you're here. I feel like I was stalking you on Twitter, trying to get you to come on our program, and you're here. It's like a gift from Santa.
Oh, I wouldn't push that too far, but it's an honor to be here, and I'm excited. Your show is fantastic, and hello to everybody.
Hi. We just briefly want people to understand what your company does so they can understand your expertise in the world of crime. And, we talk so much on this program about DNA and DNA analysis, but what we don't discuss is the extraction of the DNA to be able to collect a sample. So in the simplest way possible, could you explain to us what the MVAC does?
Absolutely. The MVAC, if you think about how a carpet cleaner works, so the way it sprays a sterile solution down and then vacuums up whatever is in that solution. So imagine that on a medical grade level where you're looking for DNA off of evidence. So somebody could grab your sleeve and we can vacuum that area around the sleeve and get that person's DNA. So we can get DNA off just about anything.
It's fascinating to me how you all play a role in the solving of a crime. And again, DNA is the new gold standard in forensic technology and digital forensics. Where we didn't have this maybe 30 years ago, and everything is evolving and changing so quickly. So I'm thrilled that you're here, Jared. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on our cases. We don't have any super rich DNA cases for you today because there's a case that we're watching out of California that has gone to the jury. It's a huge case. We are interrupting this podcast to let you know that a verdict has come in on our top case. We recorded this podcast while the jury was deliberating, and a few hours later, the jury came back with a guilty verdict. 39-year-old Jade Jenks has been found guilty of first-degree murder in the death of her stepfather. The discussion that you are about to hear was recorded a few hours before the verdict and examines the evidence and some of the challenges facing the jury. So our first case is out of Solano Beach, California, where a woman is accused of killing her stepfather after discovering nude photos of herself on his computer. Stuff that should not have been there. So here's the summary. Jade Jenks, who is 39 years old, has been charged with the murder of her former stepfather, 64-year-old Thomas Merriman. Prosecutors say that she was furious after discovering over 100 nude photos of herself on Thomas's computer. Jade says that she was for sure freaked out and really angry about it, but that she didn't kill him. What's interesting here, Jared, is really DNA evidence does not appear to play a huge role in this case. And it'll be interesting to see how the jury reacts to all of this.
Yeah, in reading the case summary that you provided me, it was it was interesting to me that they had brought in, as part of that evidence, that red rope that you were talking, that she had apparently bought the day before. The either this gentleman either died or was murdered, and the red rope, they said, had two parts of DNA on it. In the middle section was the victim's DNA, and on the outer sections was her DNA. And that implies to me that she had used this rope to strangle him, and that's really common with ligatures and garrots and things like that, where the victim's DNA is going to be on the middle of the. And it can be a rope, it can be a power cord, whatever. But the victim's DNA is going to be in the middle, because that's typically the portion that goes around the person's neck, and then the suspect is going to be gripping it on the outer ends of that. And the part that was really puzzling to me is they said there was no. So the victim was only in the driveway and deceased for a day or two. And in California, I wouldn't think that, especially in the middle of the winter, that wouldn't be, the decomposing wouldn't be super fast. But the coroner didn't say that there was any signs of strangulation.
Exactly. This is why this case is so puzzling to me. The coroner said that it was, massive intoxication, and he apparently had a ton of prescription drugs that he was on. He had just come out of the hospital, and she says that he took a combination cocktail of whiskey and sleeping pills. And so the coroner has testified that he died of an overdose of the sleeping pills, and that's what killed him. And so they have presented to the jury, the prosecution, as you just said, Jared, that they claim that not only did she feed him this combination, but then she strangled him and then put a bag over him. But if that doesn't appear to be the cause of death, then what does a jury do with this information? I mean, I realize there's a lot more we need to discuss, but I am so puzzled by that.
Yeah, the prosecution, of course, is going to bring in every angle they possibly can to try to prove their case, but just like the defense is going to, try to show the other side. But if the victim didn't die of strangulation, whether it be through a rope or even, strangling somebody with their hands, there's all sorts of indications that you'll see there, including discoloration of the face and bulging of the eyes. But there would be a dramatic mark around the neck where either with the hands or with a rope, you would see a mark around the neck where that person had been strangled. And there doesn't seem to be that. So, and if the coroner is saying he didn't die of strangulation, he died of drug overdose, well, I don't know. I don't know why the prosecution would even bring that in, other than to create a little more, pause, I guess. I find it distracting. I also figure, if that seems so off point to me, if they don't have the evidence, to support that, then I'm curious about, what about the rest of their theory? Tell me what you can prove, and I, as the juror, will figure out within this what probably happened. And I think that reveals a weakness. Go with your strength on this case. So let's talk more about what prosecutors say and what, Jade says. So Jade did take the stand in her own defense, which I always say is very tricky. If you can answer those questions, those nagging questions and those things that don't make sense, then by all means, take the stand. However, if you then cast even more doubt
on your version of events, you really shouldn't be there. And I'm kind of on the fence. I found some of her testimony interesting, and the other left me somewhat baffled. So again, it's in the hands of the jury. So prosecutors say that what she did was that this all happened on New Year's Eve of 2020, and that he had been in the hospital. Thomas had been in the hospital, and Jade went to pick him up. Now, this part is a little unusual. You get out of the hospital, you're clearly not well, and the first thing you do is you stop at a liquor store to get some whiskey. You know, she claims that he had all sorts of addiction problems. I don't know whether that's true or not, but I do find picking up whiskey on the way home, okay, it's New Year's Eve. I don't know, maybe he was going to celebrate. You know, usually you stop, you get eggs, you get some milk, some juice for the morning, and the whiskey wouldn't be at the top of my list. So let's talk about how she discovered the pictures, because I think that, to me, was the nagging question. It's like, ooh, was she digging through the computer? So here's what Jade says. Okay, she testified that she was cleaning his office. So he's in the hospital. She's the former stepdaughter. Parents have separated and divorced. And she's visiting him in the hospital, and she's taking care of his place. She says she's wiping things down. She's in his office. She says she bumped the mouse, and then the screensaver popped up. In the screensaver was a photo of her breasts, and she knew it was hers because she has a beauty mark. So that's when she freaked out. And I can understand. That's kind of a freaky thing. This is your stepdad. So they're saying that's the motive, Jared, that she was angry, betrayed, disgusted by all of this. Does that seem like a motive?
Motive to, like what she was saying, you know, and trying to intimidate him and show how angry he was or she was about it and get it deleted from her computer. Yeah. Commit first degree murder. You know, I don't know. That's a pretty incensed woman.
Yeah, that's just very disturbing. I mean, the way I'm kind of reading this is, if you're trying to take care of someone who has been in the hospital and you're trying to help them and take care of their home and doing all these other things, and then you feel a sense of, my God, I've just been betrayed by this person. Here I am being the dutiful former stepdaughter, and now I'm finding out he's got all these photos of me that he shouldn't have had access to. She claims she never gave them to him. She claims they were on her computer, on her digital camera. And I mean, that's a possibility that you feel like you've maybe been taken advantage of. She claims that there was never anything inappropriate in their relationship together. You know, it is interesting that Jade's mother and Thomas separated in 2008, and after the divorce, Jade continued to have a relationship with him and was part caretaker of him. She lived with Thomas until she was in her 20s. Then she moved out, and then back in 2020, they reconnected, and she moved into the house next door to his. So they lived truly next door to one another in Solana Beach. Now, Jade works as an interior designer, and Thomas was the co-founder of Butterfly Farms, a nonprofit dedicated to preserving butterflies. And they had like one of these, you know, big enclosed areas where kids could go in for field trips and get to know about butterflies. So I have to say, I'm having some inconsistent images here of the victim of butterfly person, right, with nature, and then Jade telling us he's downing some whiskey and sleeping pills. So I'm getting two pictures of one person, and they may very well all live in that same person. But, you know, there's a lot going on here. So I do want to get more into Jade's testimony. She said some of the photos of her were cropped, and that he had placed them in different folders that were categorized by body part. If that's true, that's like really creepy, you know?
Well, the entire thing is pretty creepy, but Yeah, and the interesting thing to me is how many of us actually live kind of double lives. This guy on the outside appeared to be, this butterfly lover and had his nonprofit and all that, and at the same time, on her side, she was this uh, semi-successful, I guess, interior designer, and but more importantly, she was actively taking care of her former stepfather that she didn't have to. They'd been weren't really a family for a long time, and yet I read one part. She said, "Well, he was my dad." And so she was loving enough that she would even move next door to him and take care of him. So I would fully understand that she would have one image of him, and one that would be she would be willing to sacrifice herself in taking care of him. And then all of a sudden she found these nude photos of herself on his computer. And so, yeah, as far as feeling betrayed and angry and, all those irrational, they're rational to her, but cause you to do irrational things, all those emotions, the anger and things like that. And so I would fully understand why she would be as angry as she could have been that morning.
Right. And as she says, oh, I was angry, but I didn't kill him. And certainly even if the state's own medical examiner cannot prove this theory of strangulation, I think it's a little far-fetched. So in her testimony, she went on about how some of those photos, again, were taken when she was much younger, which she found very concerning. Here is a clip of Jade's testimony.
Had you ever made any sexual overtures toward your stepfather?
No.
Did you tell him that you had nude photos of yourself?
No.
And you never showed him anything similar to those, correct?
No, he was my dad.
So according to police, Jade picked up Thomas from the hospital on New Year's Eve. That would be December 31st. And that is the last time that he was seen alive. Now, just like how he died is still being disputed here, so is where he died. This, to me, is the part I have the most trouble with. So Jade testified that after picking up Thomas, they stopped to buy the whiskey, as we said. Then he took a fistful of sleeping pills and passed out in her car. She testified he had a drug problem and that this happened a lot, that he would pass out in the driveway. And I'm sure that that's something that I would think could be verified. So here's what she said she did. She left him in her car overnight, and when she checked on him the next day, which was New Year's Day, he was dead. And she says she did not call 911 because she didn't want to be blamed for his death. Now, this, to me, does not make sense. Why would you leave him passed out in a car at night? Now, I get it. She's mad at him and she's like, you know what? You're on your own, buddy. I've done enough. You have disrespected me, and, there's your house. You get out of the car and you get yourself home. So I think that that's possible. That's plausible. I get that. But the not calling 911 when he is dead. And then she said that she managed to get him toward his garage, outside, dumps his body, and then covers it with trash. This, to me, makes no sense. That's a bad cover-up.
To me, if she actually planned on killing him and she wanted to kill him, why would she dump him in the driveway, to start decomping it? That's the part that I was reading that and I was like, what? If the guy's already in the vehicle and you want to get rid of him, then drive him out to the desert somewhere. And to me, that implies to me that she's just panicked. She has absolutely no idea what to do. And I don't know, to me, that's also one of those areas of doubt.
So do you believe that part of her story where she's like, oh my God, he's dead. They're going to think I did it. Let me just get rid of him. And that it was very poor planning or no planning at all. And that maybe she didn't kill him.
Well, if you look back at all the other cases that I'm sure you've covered, if there's an actual plan to kill somebody, then usually people will have a plan to get rid of the body, because naturally, when you kill somebody, now you have a new issue. You have to actually get rid of the evidence. And you would think that somebody of her, you know, she's an interior designer and capable of buying her own home and taking care of other people, that she would be intelligent enough to know that, you know what, yeah, if I kill this guy, I'm going to have a body to get rid of, because most people are not smart enough to actually stage a suicide or something like that. And at least if they think they are, then they're usually wrong, because it's a lot harder to do than what people think. And, you know, actually killing somebody is a lot harder to do than most people think. So could this guy have actually just OD'd and you know, the combination of the Ambien and the whiskey actually killed him, especially if he's in a weakened state coming out of a hospital? Sure.
Totally.
But to panic to the point that you're just like, you know what, I don't want to get blamed for it. And yet her entire thought process just is, you know, I'm just going to dump him in a driveway. To me, that doesn't make sense at all.
Right. And then cover him with a little bit of trash. It's just like, you know how squirrels never are very good at hiding anything. You watch them. And that's what I feel like. Like a squirrel came in here, put a little bit of trash. And for an interior designer, you would think she would get every little detail of every corner of every part there. So I don't know. That to me is very interesting. And there's going to be more incriminating evidence. So he was found on January 2nd. So remember, last time that he was seen alive would have been the 31st when released from the hospital. And police found him because they were doing a welfare check. Now, according to the autopsy report, again, you know, the cause of death was acute intoxication from sleeping pills, not supporting the strangulation, which again, I think is very important here. So here's the other part that I find interesting, and I actually find some of this almost a little suspicious on the prosecution side. Okay, so two friends / associates told the police that Jade either asked them for help in killing Thomas or sent incriminating text messages about wanting to kill Thomas. So her defense, again, is always that Thomas's poor health combined with the intoxication is what killed him. And that's what they're sticking to. Now, in one of these text messages, this is indeed very incriminating. And they put this up on a big screen in the courtroom. And the quote is, this is her text, quote, "I just dosed the hell out of him." Oh, okay. That is very, very damaging. And then the next one is, "I'm about to club him on the head as he's waking up." Okay. She needed to answer this on the stand. Remember, you're going to take the stand. You're going to have to answer for the inconsistencies and the problems in the case. So this is what she said. She said, "I don't have a good answer for these text messages other than if I had planned to kill him, I wouldn't have been stupid enough to send these text messages. Yes, it's an expression. I want to kill him, right? Okay, she's mad at him, but the dosing the hell out of him, that is very suspicious when he dies of intoxication or overdose of sleeping pills. And she's dosing the hell out of him. This to me is the most incriminating.
Yeah, and it's interesting that the prosecution didn't just harp on that. You know, they introduced it, to me, that red rope again comes around. And when I don't know this, why introduce doubt into your own case?
Yes, exactly.
The prosecution is introducing this rope and implying that he was strangled when the coroner has said there's no indication of strangulation and the cause of death is overdose. So why would the the prosecution bring up anything other than that overdose and say, you picked him up. He was in a weakened state because he's a recovering alcoholic. You took him you knew he couldn't resist alcohol. So you took him to the place
liquor
to buy
store.
it. Yeah, the liquor store, and you bought him alcohol. You got him drunk, and then you know, to me that would have, and then you gave him a whole bunch of Ambien. To me, that would have been a pretty shut and, you know, closed case. It's like, yeah, you killed him. You know, it says right here you overdosed the hell out of him, or you drugged the hell out of him, and then, you know what? But to me, it's just like this rope is like a distraction, and yet that's what the prosecution brought in.
Well,
like,
I find these two individuals, the witnesses, also slightly problematic, and here's why. Because remember, these messages are being sent to them, and they're claiming that she's asking them to help her kill him or dispose of the body. Okay, here's my problem with this, Jared. One of them wouldn't testify. Okay?
yeah.
And come on, we all know we can be compelled. So that means the prosecution didn't really want them to testify. And then the other one, you know, so one testifies, the other one doesn't want to, and the one that doesn't want to is having a little issue because he apparently has to deal with other criminal charges that he's facing. So this brings me back to, these are like, could these be witnesses of convenience? I don't know. Yes, her text messages, in her words, damning, and she really doesn't have a good answer for it. I think that's incriminating. I think the fact that I think it's possible that she either assisted, I think it's possible that she could have maybe, because obviously she bought the whiskey, that she could have given him the whiskey knowing he had the sleeping pills, knowing that he was going to take it all. And part of her is wishing, yeah, go ahead, take it. And maybe that's how she contributed to it. And the fact she left him in the vehicle instead of rendering aid contributed to his death. Was it murder? Was it planned, or was it indifference to his life because she was angry? I don't know. It's in the jury's hands.
Well, yeah, and it'll be really interesting to see what the jury actually comes out with. But in one part, I did see that she said, I'm not big enough to carry him. And so maybe she did try to get him into the house, and he just fell down, and that's where he died. And so she was just like, I what am I supposed to do? The guy's dead. I can't carry him. I'm not big enough to move him. And so she just covered him up with garbage until she could figure out what to do. But I don't know. I would think if she was truly innocent that she would have called 911 and said, oh my gosh, I was trying to bring him in and he fell and whatever. I mean, I think she would have a more plausible story then than would, well, you know, he died in the car and I just, I didn't know what to do with him. So I moved him to the driveway and covered him up with garbage. But
yeah, I agree. And look, if she was reaching out for people to help her, which is what these two witnesses were saying, and one couldn't help, so he got a so-called associate of his to try and help, that, again, is incriminating. It's damaging. It's all damaging. So
especially as sketchy as these guys are, it's like if she was just trying to help him get into the house and he fell out of the car, or, you know, she couldn't get him into the house. Well, then call a neighbor. They had a neighbor testify. And so it's like, you know, what would you do if you had an elderly person that was passed out in your driveway? Well, you don't just leave them there and come up with garbage. You run over to somebody or you either dial 911 or you run over to the neighborhood and say, oh my gosh, can you help me move this guy into the house? And I can't do it myself. Mm-hmm. And what neighbor wouldn't do that?
Right. And the neighbor would probably say, I think we have to call the cops. You know, we better call 911. This is not a job for me.
Yeah.
I think that's what any reasonable neighbor would say. So the jury began deliberating this case on Tuesday, December 20th. And once again, an update. A few hours after this podcast was recorded, Jade Jenks was found guilty of first-degree murder. She faces a sentence of 25 years to life in prison. A sentencing hearing is scheduled for April 3rd of 2023. because it is almost Christmas, I said to the team here, please, no more murders for our second case. Can we just do a crime where no one is killed? And that is how we came upon this case, which I got to tell you, I'm fascinated with. So this is out of Wetumpka, Alabama, where two so-called cat ladies have been convicted on misdemeanor charges stemming from their feeding stray cats. Animal lovers across the country have come to their defense, and numerous animal rights organizations say that the two women have been treated way too harshly, but the court has ruled otherwise. You all are going to see the video, and you all will make your own decisions, because the body cam video is incredible. It shows the exchange and everything, and the tone, just body language, everything. So the two women, 85-year-old Beverly Roberts, yes, who is still driving, and 61-year-old Mary Alston. They were arrested and convicted of trespassing and disorderly conduct. The arrests were recorded by police body cameras. It is a tale of the tapes. Now, Beverly, who is a feisty 85-year-old woman without question, is also a decorated retired Army veteran, and she loves cats, okay? So Beverly and Mary admit they were feeding stray cats. There's no denying that. In fact, you'll see on the body camera video when the cops go through their cars, I mean, the back seats are filled with cans of cat food. There's no question. And they don't deny this. So the women say that not only were they trying to feed the cats, but they also had some cages, and they were trying to catch the cats so they could have them fixed and ultimately, rehome them and help with the cat situation. So clearly everyone in this community does not want the stray cats anymore. And the difference here is the difference of opinion on approach. So, yeah, I'm obsessed with this case. Can you tell, Jared? This is just such a great case.
Oh, this is just perfect for Christmas. These I can just picture these two old ladies. They're just like, oh, all the poor cats, they don't have any food. We got to go take care of them. Let's try to help the community clean it up and take care of these poor animals. And I understand, I grew up in Idaho, and part of my life was on a farm, and we had stray cats that made their way into our barn. And the incredible thing is, even without feeding them, before we knew it, there was probably 20 cats in there, and they were just feral cats. And I'll tell you what, they did not like people. They were vicious, and as kids, we tried to get in there and try to help them and stuff. And they wanted nothing to do with us. And they had some really sharp claws. I can attest to that. Probably still have scars from it. But, I can definitely understand how these women would feel that they were helping, and, especially with their love of cats. And, and they're just these two older, loving women that wanted to do something for these animals. But the problem is, as you're feeding them, you're enabling them to breed more, and that's just making the problem worse. And I think that's what the police were trying to explain to them is, you can't feed these cats. They'll just proliferate, and before you know it, we'll have 1,000 cats around here. But
well, I'm of two minds here on this one, because I think cats are, I'm sure there were plenty of mice, field mice, that they were able to catch and keep very busy with. And I do understand that there's no way you're going to catch them unless you lure them with food. It's because feral cats are incredibly hard they're fast. They're incredibly fast. So, I kind of understand both problems here. I understand you got too many cats, and everyone's got a different approach on how to do it. The question is, when this came to a head, was it handled the way it should have been? And I can also say, when you watch the video, when these two women were told by the police, okay, you're now trespassing and you've got to leave. Police gave them a half-hour warning and said to them, okay, I'm giving you a chance to leave. And they chose not to leave. And that's where this comes down to. I mean, did they have to be handcuffed the way that they were? Maybe. But then, Beverly got kind of sassy there when she's handing over her keys to one of the cops because they're taking her in. They're like, okay, Beverly, we're done with you. You're under arrest for trespassing. You're going. And she wanted to give her friend the car keys. And they said, no, give it to the officer. And when she kind of threw them at him. Did she harm him? No. But that was it. That was the straw that broke all of the camel's backs out there. And they're like, that's it, Beverly, you're going in. You've gone too far now. That's why we're going to play as much of this video for all of you. I do want to set up a few more things. So when you see the video, you have as much context as possible. So this happened on the morning of June 25th. Of 2022, Mary and Beverly were asked to leave a vacant lot owned by Elmore County, which apparently is part of the court property. So here's where some of the argument is. Beverly and Mary say, this is public property. It belongs to the county. It belongs to the court. You cannot tell me that I am trespassing. I have a right to be here. The police are saying, you do not. You're contributing to the problem of the cats. Plus, we've told you to leave. You have no business here parking on this lot, this grassy area. And they didn't leave. So this is what the legal argument is over. Public property, did police have a right to tell them to go? So ultimately, 3 patrol cars respond. And here's the situation that we're going to pick everything up with. This is now, you're going to see the cops interacting with 85-year-old Beverly and her friend, Mary, and the discussion. Let's just play the body cam video for you.
Teetering on going to jail for feeding cats.
Well, for trespassing, we told you to leave and you haven't left. You want to handle her? I mean, she's still not leaving. If you want to take her to jail too, go for it. All right, Ms. Roberts? Okay. Apparently, they've had an issue with you out here before with the cats.
Not here.
Feeding the cats out here, right?
Well, I feed them. We've been trying to trap them, and we get them neutered and then get them homes.
Okay.
So we're trying to do the city a favor.
Okay, well, the city has asked you multiple times.
The city?
Yes, ma'am. Not to do this.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and they have trespassed you. Okay, and now you're trespassing.
I'm
Okay.
sitting in my car. I'm not. I
Well,
haven't
you're on
touched.
ma'am, you're on the property. You've got cat food. Okay, it's pretty. I mean, all in the back seat. It's pretty clear what your intent is. Okay.
Uh-huh.
All right. So, because you've been trespassed and you have returned yet again, we're gonna have to take you to jail. Okay.
Jesus Christ.
No.
No.
You can go too.
Shit. You all are unbelievable. This is what you're wasting city gas on.
Okay.
Jesus Christ.
Okay, step up here for me. Okay.
Now,
listen,
wait a minute.
I'm not gonna listen to me. I'm not listen. Hold on. Where are you going?
I'm going to give her my car keys so she can get my car to my
Here,
house.
give it to that officer right there. He'll hand them to her.
to say one thing
Hey. It's gonna get ugly if you don't stop.
Can I please say one thing?
Okay. Now you just got another charge.
Can I say
Congratulations. Get out. Get out. I'm tired. Get out. Get out.
You understand? You cannot take me without my
Go
purse.
ahead and step in for me. Ma'am, go ahead and step in. Come on.
Close my car door,
Ma'am,
please.
we're gonna get all your stuff. Just step in for me.
Well, I can't without, I'm almost 85 years old.
Yes, ma'am. And I had every intention of putting those handcuffs in the front for you until you started acting like that.
I'm sorry I can't get in.
So, Jared, I get the feeling after watching this video a few times that the cops were like up to here with these 2 cat ladies, and you can hear it in their commentary as they're going through the women's purses, and And as they're talking to each other and going through the car saying, look at all the cat food they had. I mean, they could, we didn't have to take them in if they just would have left. So you can even hear, the cops talking to themselves and each other. And you can see, that Mary and Beverly are for sure trying to plead their case. And I'm just going to put this out there. Look, you're 85 years old. I think at that point you could say to the police, maybe you push it. You're 85 and you're like, listen, I'm 85 years old. Just leave me alone. But do you really get to be left alone and do what you want because you're 85? I don't. I don't know.
Oh, God bless our law enforcement officers. Some of this, 99% of the stuff that they do on a daily basis is just honestly stuff like this. And on occasion you have the murderers that they have to respond to. But for the most part, these guys are just trying to do their job. They've been obviously told by somebody to go take care of the cat ladies. Well, they gave them plenty of warning. They're saying, look, we're going to give you a half hour to, finish up what you're doing and vacate the area. And yes, they do have the right to do that because even though it is owned by the county, they can still, put restrictions on it. And feeding stray cats on the property next to the courthouse is probably not something that the city officials want done. So they sent the police out there and just said, just tell them to clear out. And the fact that they told them to clear out and they didn't, well, once they tell them to clear out, my understanding, I'm not a lawyer, but my understanding with law enforcement is once they give a lawful order, then it's our responsibility as citizens to respond to that and to obey that. And again, I emphasize, legal and lawful order, and telling them to vacate the premises in a nice, courteous way, saying, listen, I understand you love cats. However, can't do it here. So they give them the time, and then they're like, hey, Beverly, come on, we told you to vacate and you haven't yet. So now they have to escalate it. And, they're like, look, just leave. But then they won't leave. So, do they have to put them in cuffs? I don't know. I mean, if Beverly's, especially as, I'm a retired Army officer too. And so I understand, she probably wasn't accustomed to just taking orders. And so a little feisty. And so I'm sure she's like, well, I serve my country. I can do whatever I want. Well,
and what's interesting is that, so Beverly, because she is 85, it is hard sometimes to get your arms behind you. And you can see that they handcuff her and then she can't physically bend enough to be able to get into the back of the patrol car. So then they try another patrol car and they're telling her, this one's a little bit lower. Maybe you can fit in this way. And she's like, well, did you have to handcuff me behind my back? And the officer says to her, you shouldn't have thrown those keys and I would have handcuffed you in the front. So it's like action, reaction. I'm not defending or criticizing. I'm just simply stating that everyone there contributed to the situation in their own way, from their own position about how this all went down. Okay, so this clip that we played for you is from the Montgomery Advertiser. It's, we're going to link to it so you can see even more of it if you want. So now let's get to sentencing day, because now we have the incident in June. You've seen the body camera. Now, here's what happened in court, because this case doesn't end. So last week on December 13th, the city judge ruled on the case after a 5-hour trial. And by the way, the two women, Mary and Beverly, did not take the stand. Okay. The judge said, quote, "There's a lot of politics swirling around here today." It's just a 5-hour trial. The politics of cats. Oh, my Lord. Okay, so then the verdicts come in. And the judge asked if the women had anything to say. And Beverly raised her hand.
Oh, boy.
And she did. So I'm quoting here. This is how the exchange went down. This is Beverly. Quote, I am not the first person in Wetumpka to feed cats. People were doing it long before me. I just got caught. The judge. You weren't convicted for feeding cats. Beverly snaps back. I know, because it's not illegal. Oh my gosh. Okay, so Beverly Roberts was found guilty of criminal trespassing and disorderly conduct. Mary Alston was found guilty of criminal trespassing and interfering with governmental operations. The two women were sentenced, can you believe this? 2 years. 2 years of unsupervised probation. That means for 2 years, Beverly better walk the straight and narrow.
Yeah.
Okay.
No more throwing your keys at the cops.
No more throwing keys or even jangling them anywhere near a cop. Okay. And then 10 days in jail, which the judge suspended the jail sentence. So it's in name only, and plus $100 in fines and court costs. Really? 2 years of probation? This is a misdemeanor. I mean, come on. You've seen the camera. Is that to me seems a bit much.
Oh, I have no idea. Honestly, I'm not an attorney, but I would bet that based on the conviction of those charges, I would bet that's the minimum. And so that's probably in the statute somewhere where that's the absolute minimum. I'm sure this judge is just like, oh my gosh, really?
Really?
I have to listen to this trial, and the prosecution. Well,
it was political, he said. The whole thing was political. You know what I would have done if I were the judge? I would have sentenced these two to community service and some animal thing, put them to use at the shelter in the area in which, right? To honor what they're trying to do and basically saying, look, you got to follow the law. There are consequences for not listening to police. I get it. I don't know. It just seems like an awful lot here. So back to the case. The defense attorneys for the two women have argued that the criminal trespassing charges are not warranted because feeding stray cats doesn't violate any laws. So they're claiming that the genesis of this is faulty to begin with. So they say that the original case is invalid, that the charges of disorderly conduct and obstructing governmental operations are also baseless. So they are going to appeal this verdict and they're going to demand a jury trial. I can't wait to hear everyone's comments on YouTube. You all are going to weigh in. This is my holiday gift to you, something we could all really talk about. And just marvel at. The video is incredible. I hope you all enjoy this one. Jared, before we go, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about MVAC and what your company does. How have you seen the change in technology so radically change not just prosecution, but, how we solve cases?
Well, DNA, like you said, is basically the gold standard now. And the ability that the MVAC brings to the table is the ability to collect DNA from pretty much any type of surface. So, you have evidence out there that prior to the MVAC coming onto the stage, basically they didn't really have a way to get the DNA out of the rock or the brick or off of the clothing. And, it's helping solve enough cases that it's not anecdotal anymore. It's literally a tool that pretty much every law enforcement agency needs to have access to. And, frankly, I think the record thus far is there's a case in upstate New York where it helped solve a 56-year-old cold case. And, if it's solving cases like that, it may be able to help solve one of the cases of one of your listeners. So,
yeah, I'm just fascinated how so many of you really bring a piece of the puzzle to crime solving, because the expertise that you and your company bring to the table is the extraction of the DNA from an item which before you couldn't necessarily get. So the fact that you can extract the DNA is what you bring to the table. We said at the top of the program about Othram and what they do, where they do the analysis of the DNA. And so each one of you is bringing this level of technology that makes it possible to get to the bottom of who killed this person, how was this person killed. I think the MVAC, are you in just about every police department now?
Unfortunately, no. We are not really into, 5%. So there's about 18,000 different police agents or law enforcement agencies around the country. Well, there's only a couple of hundred MVACs in the entire United States. So there's a lot of agencies that are actually too small to justify the cost of one of them. But at a minimum, they need to know about the system so that if they ever have a case where they're having difficulty getting DNA off of an item, at least they know what to do with it. Because in the past, they've just put it in the evidence room and just let it sit. But now there's literally, I'd say if there's a case that's more than 5 years old, that it has evidence that hasn't been tested in the last 5 years, they need to resubmit it, because not just the MVAC, but there's all sorts of technology that has improved the lab processes, including like Othram and those guys. And those processes can give the investigators, if not an actual profile, they can at least give them directions to go, and it's really amazing how fast that technology or the processes and the capabilities of DNA that has enabled investigators to solve cases you would think would just be impossible.
It's incredible. I mean, we're fascinated by this. The people who subscribe to this podcast, so many of our listeners and viewers, they not only want to know how and who and what was going on, but how did you figure that out? And what was the way to do it? Because it's the entire piece of the investigation, I think, is fascinating, whether it's the people involved in the investigation and what they allegedly did, but it's also how you figured it out. Because in some of these cases, you're like, how did this happen? And who was this person? So I'm fascinated by this. Thank you so much for joining us today, because we've been trying to get you on the program and it's been great. Jared, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Wow. The pleasure has been all mine.
If people want to follow you or the cases that your company is working on and different police departments, where can people find you on social media?
So I'm really active on LinkedIn. Just go to my profile and connect with me. I'd love that. But we also have YouTube channels, both with MVAC Systems, and it's M-VAC Systems. My podcast is All Things Crime. It's on YouTube as well as all of the Spotify and iTunes and things like that. And so, yeah, I'd love to connect with your followers, and anything I can do to help your show, just let me know.
Oh, next time we're going to find some DNA-rich cases for you.
Absolutely. I'd love to come on and talk about it.
Terrific. Well, you can, of course, find me at Anna G News, Anna with one N, all social media. This episode and every one of our podcasts available wherever you get your podcasts, also on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe to that. And of course, you can get our newsletter at truecrimedaily.com. I want to let you know that for the holidays, we have a special podcast that we will be releasing between Christmas and New Year's. And this is about a murder that took place on New Year's Day of a woman who many people would never have given a second look to. She was unhoused on the streets. But what you don't know about this woman is that she used to be a recording artist in the 60s. And it's the story of her life, this case, and trying to get justice for her to this day Her murder trial has not begun. So I hope you get a chance to hear that special podcast. We thought it was important to do it around the anniversary of her murder. So until next week, I'm your host, Anna Garcia. And as we always say, but before we say that, I want to wish you all a very happy, safe, healthy new year. We'll see you back here. And now I will say it, as we always say, don't do crime.